Good morning, you guys. This is Monty from DPL Surveillance Equipment. Today's podcast focuses on some primary indicators that give me the impression that I say within the next 8 to 9 months, you're going to probably hear more official media outlets or more media outlets officially proclaiming that we're in a recession. A number of you who are following various indicators and such, and who are more involved in the financial markets, you probably are under the impression that we could be already there. By all means, some of the indicators, again, point to the idea that we could very well already be there, and you wouldn't be wrong. But for the majority of people, keep your eye on these various indicators, and perhaps buy yourself some time to make the appropriate changes in the way you handle your finances and the things that you do. Let's take a look at some of the indicators, okay? Right now, there's a global trend taking place. By the way, my name is Monty Henry, owner of DPL Surveillance Equipment. I've been involved with the financial markets in one way or the other since I was probably 19 years old. Now, like two or three, at least 3 times as old. So, having continuously been involved in equities and now cryptocurrencies and just dedicated and devoted to monitoring the economy, the stock markets and such. You name it. I gather information and I act upon now accumulation of knowledge that goes back 3 decades at least. Let me see, probably 4 decades at least. Anyway, let's get right into it, okay? And see if we can make some sense by reading the tea leaves. There's something called negative interest rates. Negative interest rates are prevalent mainly outside the United States. And so the question is, what does that mean? What does that entail? Why should I be concerned about negative interest rates? Negative interest rates usually mean that even though we're typically used to getting a return on our money, whether it's a money market, a savings account, checking account, or something, when you put your money in a bank, for instance, you expect them to give you something, right? Well, believe it or not, when you're traveling throughout Europe and outside the United States, there are a number of countries where you have to pay the bank because their economies have fallen apart so much that they are desperate to get those funds into the bank. And people aren't so inclined to do so when they know they're not going to get any type of decent return. So what they're doing overseas, for instance, a lot of the citizens, they're keeping their money in safes. They're keeping their money buried in the in the ground in the backyard somewhere or whatever. These people are definitely afraid in Japan and Europe and different places to put their money into the bank because the returns are dismal. They're negative. In the United States, you guys been fooled to the point where instead of banks here proclaiming negative interest, you are told that, okay, your fees are just going up. So in other words, the banks are offsetting the idea that instead of paying you something in the way of a decent return, not only are they not giving you a decent return, but they charge you more and more fees. So in other words, they're offsetting their costs here in the United States. The banks are by charging you various account maintenance fees, minimum balance fees, all sorts of fees. Who cares what you call it? The outcome or the end game is the same. The banks here are losing so much money in the way of deposits and such that they have to charge you. So they charge. In other words, they're just trying to make up for the idea that they don't want to proclaim negative interest right now, even though they eventually will. They just go ahead and charge you an abundance of different types of fees. So it's the same end result, basically. Excuse the noise. The again, outside the United States, and I have some charts, various charts on my website that go into significant detail in terms of what it looks like when you have a majority of the countries outside the United States giving you negative interest on your money. Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, Japan, Denmark, Austria, France, Finland, Belgium, Slovakia, Slovenia, Ireland, Sweden, Spain, Portugal, Malta, Italy, and let's see. Those are basically the majority of them. The only ones that aren't proclaiming it right now are UK and United States. So, as you can see, the trend is accelerating. This is like a cancer, by the way. When negative interest rates, as they make their progression from across the globe, from country to country, this is spreading, okay, into more and more Western states. So, Western countries, rather. So, this is the trend. You typically don't want to ignore the trend, especially you millennials. You baby boomers and such, you have a lot to lose as well because you won't get any type of decent return on your money. So make sure you understand the implications of low interest rates as well. Donald Trump talked Jerome Powell into keeping interest rates low as compared to, excuse the noise, as compared to raising them. Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, was on a trajectory of raising, which means the economy would have been taking its medicine. And even though medicine is not always pleasant, you take your medicine and you get well, just like you take your antibiotics or whatever medicine you don't want to take, and eventually, after a week or so, the medicine starts to take effect. But for political expediency, Donald Trump decides to talk Jerome Powell into keeping interest rates low, postponing the inevitable recession or the taking of the bad medicine and the effects of taking the medicine and getting it over and done with so the patient can get well. They basically decided, no, let's pretend like everything is fine and we can just drag on, excuse the noise, drag on with the money printing, quantitative easing, stock market manipulation, pumping excessive amounts of money into the stock markets and such, propping them up, telling people, look at the stock market, we're doing fine. If the stock market is doing fine, you are too. Even though most people look at their bank accounts, checking accounts, retirement, savings accounts, and they're like, I don't think we're doing that fine. Which you're right. By all measures, a lot of people are hurting, and they're going to be hurting even more. I'm gonna get to some strategies in a second, but let's just make sure we understand some of these indicators. So that was negative interest rates creeping across the globe, coming more and more to Western countries. What else we got? We have what is this? The yields on the 10-year bonds. So why is that important? Because you can put your money, particularly if you live in the United States, Australia, Portugal, Japan, and Germany. If you put your money in a 10-year bond, you'll be lucky if you get 2% in most countries, in most places, particularly in the United States. You'll do better by putting your money into a bond that matures in less than 2 years. which basically implies that you have an inverted yield curve. When you have an inverted yield curve, that basically means that it no longer makes sense to put your money in a long-term bond, government bond, as compared to a short-term. And typically, when that happens, you can expect a recession within 6 to 12 months. Okay, since this news is a little bit old, that 6 to 12 month time frame is now reduced to more like 7 or 8 months or something total. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. Just because nobody officially declares a recession, it doesn't mean you're not already in one, because